Hey, what's going on, guys? Room Gaming here, back in another video. Today's episode, we're going to be taking a look at Restoration Shaman for patch 11.15 in World of Warcraft. If you do find any of this information useful in any sort of way, we do have a Patreon link up here if you want to help support the channel. If not, no pressure at all, just a comment or a like or anything like that would just kind of help push us up in the algorithm. So if you do find the information useful, please consider interacting with the channel in some sort of way. With that being said, let's go ahead and get started. We'll start with the pros and cons. So Restoration Shaman is currently A tier, and we will pull them up on Archon. You can see that they're currently the second highest overall rated in terms of just cumulative Raider IO score. Now, this is looking at the highest keys, so this is going to be the 95th percentile. So if we do come up here and we change this filter to a little bit lower keys, you can still see that they are A rated still. And then we can scroll down here and take a look at this graphic. If we take a look at their HPS, you can see they can currently pump out the third most heals, right below Mistweaver and Disc, and they can also pump out in terms of DPS on the lower end behind a lot of these other healing specs. I'm really surprised, to be honest, to see Holy Paladin this high on the DPS list. So we might cover them next to see what's going on with Holy Paladin right now, but Resto Druid is absolutely in a great spot right now. So let's go back to some of the pros and cons. Some of the pros of Resto Shaman is you have a lot of cooldowns at your disposal. There's always a button. It's kind of like a spaceship, right? You got all these different tools, and you can use them for any sort of situation, right, as you see fit. Now, that brings us into a con here. We do have a lot of button bloat on Restoration Shaman, and a lot of that is because we have totems. So each totem is pretty much its own cooldown. So not only do we have the normal cooldowns that most other specs have, but we also have totems that we have to deal with. Now, this has gotten a lot better historically. If you remember back in the day, Shamans used to have like 20 totems. Resto Shaman used to have like 20 totems, and you had to have like a totem tracker with its own little UI bar with the drop-down menu, and you'd have to pick like between, you had 4 different classes of totems. You had to have 4 down at any given time, and it was a ton of micromanagement. So it's not that bad, but it is still pretty bad. I would say that Resto Shaman is probably like top 2 or 3 most bloated specs in the game in terms of just buttons. Anyways, going off on a rant there, we also have really good mobility through our Ghost Wolf. Most mechanics in this game, you're just going to be able to shift to Ghost Wolf and just walk right out of it. This also prevents your movement speed from being reduced below 100%, so really good in Mythic Plus. We also bring our Bloodlust or Heroism, just depending if you are Alliance or Horde. We also have Ancestral Vigor, which is going to increase the health pool on whoever you're trying to heal by 5% for 10 seconds. And then my favorite pro on this list is how easy they are to play. Now, sure, there are a ton of buttons that we just talked about, but to me, this is probably it's just very straightforward. It's point, click, it's reactive. You don't have to predict damage. You press the heal button and health bars go up. This is my favorite style of healer to play because in the world of Mythic Plus, there's 10,000 other things you have to worry about besides ramping to heal and predicting damage before it comes out. So this is why Resto Shaman is personally my favorite healer to play. Going into some of the cons, we don't have any sort of tank external, so we don't have anything like pain suppression that a priest would bring, which is actually really bad for high keys, or really any sort of dungeon that has like a hard-hitting tank buster. And we're also very mana hungry if we're not playing the spec properly. So Resto Shaman is going to give you procs that increase your healing, such as Tidal Waves, for example. If you're not using those procs to boost your healing, and you're just spamming chain heals and healing surges, you will go very, very quickly. Okay, let's go ahead and go into the talents. So if you scroll down here, you can press this talent calculator. I forgot to mention this earlier, but you can get a link to our website. It's going to be in the description of the video. Just click it. It'll take you out to this exact link so you can kind of follow along. But follow the link, scroll down to the talent section. You can click the talent calculator, and that is going to bring you out to this page right here. So scrolling down, we can see at the top of our tree, right, we're running Riptide. Riptide is going to put a heal over time effect on a target. And one thing that's really nice about Riptide is this will proc our Tidal Waves. So we mentioned Tidal Waves earlier. What is that? So when we cast Riptide, we're going to get 2 stacks of this, and this is going to beef our next healing wave, chain heal, or healing surge. So for chain heal or healing wave, it's going to reduce cast time by 20%. And for healing surge, it's going to increase its critical effect chance by 30%. So in most cases, you're using this with chain heal and using this with healing surge. To be honest, you're not pressing healing wave that much in your rotation. So if it's on your bars, I would not have healing wave take up like a primary keybind. I'd probably move it off to the side like a secondary keybind. There really shouldn't be too many situations where you're having to press healing wave, to be honest. I've read on Reddit and a lot of different places people are healing up to like 14s and 15s, and they're not pressing Healing Wave a single time. So, something to think about. Healing Wave is mana efficient, but it's very slow, and I think that you're going to lose out on a lot of damage and HPS by pressing it. Okay, we also have our Healing Stream Totem on a 30-second cooldown. So one thing that's nice about Healing Stream Totem is through our Lively Totems under the Totemic Tree, your Healing Stream Totem, I can't talk today, will cast a free chain heal at 100% effectiveness. So whenever you drop this, right, we get 2 charges of it, and that's going to be due to Healing Stream Totem over here on the left. It's going to give us an additional charge. You're getting a chain heal that will go out that is essentially free. So in most cases, you want to be prioritizing this chain heal over your normal chain heal, right? Because it's free and it's 100% effectiveness still. Now, we also have our Healing Rain over here on the left, and this is a spell that I would be careful with because it uses a ton of your mana. But blanket the target in Healing Range, restoring health. And this not only does an AoE heal effect, but it also does a damage effect through Acid Rain. So this spell is going to be a huge portion of your AoE damage. This is a bigger portion of your AoE damage than even Chain Heal, or excuse me, Chain Lightning. So in AoE, you should be spamming this and Chain Lightning back to back, and you're going to be doing a ton of AoE damage. Now, this does become kind of mana intensive when you pair this with our Downpour right here. So when you activate your Healing Rain, it will basically turn into something called Downpour if you're taking this talent. So this is a burst of water. It's going to do a decent burst of healing, and the main part of this to me is it increases their max health by 10% for 6 seconds. So really, you should only be using Downpour if they really need the healing, because Downpour costs a ton of mana to cast. So in most pools, what I'm doing is I'm going in, I'm just dropping my Healing Rain, I'm just kind of leaving it at that. And if you're on like a boss where it's being moved around a lot, it might not be efficient to even drop your Healing Rain at all because you're going to be putting so much mana into it. Another cooldown I want to talk about is our Healing Tide Totem. It's on a 2.9 minute cooldown. Now, one thing to note about this is this is not impacted by Totemic Recall. This is not the base cooldown on Healing Tide Totem. Now, the reason that this displays at 2.9 minutes is due to Totemic Surge here on your Shaman tree. And this does not impact the base cooldown of Healing Rain, so it's not impacted by Totemic Recall at all. So just note that Healing Tide Totem does not benefit from Totemic Recall. I guess let's go ahead and talk about Totemic Recall since we're at it. So resets the cooldown of your most recently used totem with a base cooldown shorter than 3 minutes. So this is going to be really good if you're running, again, which you probably are, like Healing Stream Totem. If for whatever reason you're running like Cloudburst Totem, Totemic Recall is pretty good. It's also really good if you're running Poison Cleansing Totem as well. So Totemic Recall is not going to impact your Spirit Link. It's not going to impact your Healing Tide Totem. So just kind of keep that in mind. It can also be used on your Earth Grab. It can also be used like on your Earthen Wall. So to me, this is kind of like a flex talent, right? If you remember to press it and reset the cooldown of like your utility totems and you're actually using all of them, it's a really strong talent. If you're not using all your totems, it's not that strong of a talent. Another one that's really good to use this for is like your Capacitor Totem, right? That's on a very short cooldown as well. So I'd recommend to run Totemic Recall. But again, that's only if you are actively using all your totems on every pool. Okay, moving down the list here, we have Whitewater along with Resurgence. Both scale off Critical Strike. So Resurgence is going to refund you mana based on your heal critical strikes. And then Whitewater is going to increase the effectiveness of your critical heals. So Critical Strike is like mega OP on us. Just mainly due to those two talents. In the middle here, we're running Spirit Link Totem. If you don't know what this is probably the most OP healing cooldown in the game. It almost makes people invulnerable while it's down, your entire group, right? Because you put it on the ground and everybody shares health. It's like one massive health pool that's shared between all the party members that are standing in it. So if somebody's about to die, you can drop this on them. Hopefully they're within range of another party member, and basically it will disperse their health into equal health pools and it'll be shared until they both die. Another talent that's kind of sleeper here is Master of the Elements. So casting Lava Burst increases the healing of your next 2 healing surges by 30%, stacking up to 2 times. And then Healing Surge also applies Flame Shock to a nearby enemy when empowered by your Master of the Elements. So you want to weave in some Lava Bursts in there to make sure that you're stacking your Master of the Elements. Another one I want to talk about here is Water Totem Mastery. So that tidal waves that we're talking about, right? We get stacks of it. We consume them through Healing Surge or Chain Heal. When we consume those stacks, we're getting CDR on a lot of our main cooldowns. So very, very important to play around tidal waves. You always want tidal wave stacks, and you always want to be consuming them because you're getting more CDR on your main cooldown. Moving down the list here, this bottom right-hand portion is kind of more, I guess, say geared towards like buffs. Like we have Earth Living Weapon, right? You're going to put that on your main hand. We're also running Earth and Harmony, going to make your healing more effective on targets affected by your Earth Shield. One new talent here that is really strong is Thurzane's Resilience. So Earth Shield and Water Shield no longer lose charges at all and are 115% effective. So insanely strong, right? Because this is kind of one of the problems with Resto Shaman is the button blow. Well, this now takes 2 buttons off your bars, and you can just kind of put them off to the side. That's going to be Earth Shield and Water Shield. They will never drop in a dungeon. Just put them on once, set it, forget it, you're good to go. So this actually frees up some globals for us, which means more healing, more damage. Down here at the bottom, Deeply Rooted Elements. So our Riptides have a chance to proc something called Ascendance for 6 seconds. So let's talk about that. So Ascendance is one of your main cooldowns. It's on a 2-minute cooldown, and it's going to duplicate all healing that we do at 70% effectiveness for 15 seconds. And it also does a pretty decent burst of AOE healing whenever you cast it. So if somebody's about to die, just pop Ascendance. It'll do a burst of healing. It'll probably save them. And this is one of your insanely strong cooldowns, right? This is stronger. This is stronger probably than Healing Tide, but it's probably not as strong as Spirit Link. So kind of think it as like your number 2 go-to. Okay. Yeah, I think that's everything I want to talk about in terms of the resto talents. Let's go to hero talents really quick. We talked about Lively Totems, how that's going to proc Chain Heal from Healing Stream. We also have Surging Totem. So Surging Totem is going to completely replace your Healing Rain, right? And not only that, it's going to last for 24 seconds. So it lasts for 24 seconds, and it's on a 24-second cooldown, so you can permanently have this up. So that's not only strong for the healing that it does, but it's also strong for the damage due to Acid Rain as well. So Surging Totem, very strong. Taking a look at our bottom node here, we're taking Whirling Elements. So this is another reason it's very important to keep your Surging Totem at least down. You might not use the Downpour proc, right? But your Healing Surge has a chance to proc these motes that are on your Surging Totem. So those motes are Air and Earth, and then we also have a Water mote. So for Water, your next Healing Wave or Healing Surge also heals another ally inside Healing Rain at 100% effectiveness. For Air, if we look at the Restoration section, the cast time of your next healing spell is reduced by 40%. And then Earth, if we go down to the Restoration section, your next Chain Heal applies Earth Living at 150% effectiveness to all targets hit. So that's something you will notice is Earth Living will be applied, right? That's our weapon buff over here, to all targets that are within your Healing Rain circle, which is very strong. When you get both an Earth Living and a Riptide Hot ticking on your party, that's a lot of healing per second. You're also getting healing from like Healing Stream Totem. You're also getting healing from Surging Totem. You have a lot of sort of passive hots that are going out. So Surging Totem at face value doesn't look that strong. It costs a lot of mana. But I would recommend to at least keep Surging Totem down in most scenarios, unless you are getting like really low on mana. I think you're going to get more value by keeping this down. And just be careful with the Downpour proc, because that does cost a lot of mana as well. Okay, another imbuement that we have. So we talked about Earth Living Weapon, right? That goes on our weapon. We also have a shield imbuement. So this is called Tidecaller's Guard. Imbue your shield with the element of water. Your healing duns increased by 2%, and the duration of your Healing Stream Totem and Cloud Burst increased by 3 seconds. So we have to run a main hand and shield when we're playing as Restoration Shaman. A two-handed staff is not going to be good because we can't use Tidecaller's Guard here. Okay, the last talents I want to talk about are going to be over here in the Shaman tree. That's your Capacitor Totem. That's an AoE stun that can be paired with your Thunderstorm. So a good combo is to go in, Capacitor Totem. When everything gets stunned, follow that up with a Thunderstorm. You're going to lock down an entire pack for like 4 seconds, which is super OP. And then you can take Thundershock. Thundershock is going to knock the mobs up instead of out. So Thundershock is really good. An optional talent here, instead of Spirit Walk, you can go Gust of Wind. Gust of Wind is probably going to save you more than not. If you get in a bad spot, you can just Gust of Wind and like leap over it. But overall, you do lose more mobility in terms of movement speed. Like you're not going to be able to cover as much ground. So that's up to you. I personally like to run Gust of Wind, but most people are going Spirit Walk right now. And then we also have, I think that's about everything I want to talk about. Stone Bulwark Totem. This is going to be a personal shield that you put on yourself. Absorbs like an entire health bar worth of damage. It's like a preemptive lay on hands, essentially. So where I like to use it, if you just think of like last boss of Workshop, had to think a little on that one. The Giga Zap that goes out, you can preemptively put up your Stone Bulwark Totem and completely absorb the Giga Zap and the dot effect after. So really good for little things like that. And then we also have our Nature Swiftness on 1 minute cooldown, and you can pair this with like a Chain Heal for an instant free cast Chain Heal or Healing Surge, just depending on what type of healing is needed. Okay, I could talk all day about talents and stuff, but that's all I'm going to cover for now. Let's go ahead and get into the rotational stuff. Okay, so this is going to be kind of your rotation priority. Obviously, as a healer, you don't have a rotation. It's all dynamic depending on what is happening at any given moment. So the main thing that we're really going to be focused on here is our High Tide procs. So in this procs, you'll kind of get like a wave icon above your character. And that's when we're really strong and we want to cast our Chain Heal if 3+ people are missing health. So I'm not sure if I even talked about what High Tide was, but I believe it's like 100k mana that you spend, you're going to bring in something called a High Tide that makes your next 2 Chain Heals basically heal for way more. They heal for 10% more, and they do not reduce with each jump for each link in the chain. So that is the main time that you're wanting to kind of hard cast Chain Heal. Right, you're going to cast Chain Heal through Healing Stream Totem and when High Tide is up. Outside of that, you probably are relying more on Healing Surge. So we talked about Master of the Elements earlier, right? Our Lava Burst can basically beef up our Healing Surge. So we can cast Lava Burst out, we can get stacks of our Healing Surge, and then those Healing Surges that we put out are buffed and will also spread Flame Shot. So this is sort of a gameplay loop that you're doing when people aren't in immediate danger. This isn't something that you want to be doing like religiously, right? People are dying and you're casting Lava Burst to get Mastery of the Elements. It doesn't make sense. It's just something that you want to do if you can, if you have time to do this. So in my opinion, when things are kind of crazy, things are kind of hard to heal, the only time I'm Lava Bursting is when I get that Lava Surge proc. I can get one out, I can get some easy stacks of Mastery of the Elements, and then I'll funnel that into 2 Healing Surges. Outside of that, we're going to make sure we're keeping Riptide on cooldown, make sure that we're keeping stacks of our tidal waves, and we want to be funneling those tidal wave stacks as well as Master of the Element stacks into our Healing Surge. So that's kind of the gameplay loop that you're going for, is you're trying to beef up your Healing Surge with, there's a lot of things. There's Master of the Elements, there's your Undulation here, so every 3rd Healing Surge heals for an additional 50%, and then also our tidal waves as well. And I'll kind of put that in the tooltip here. It's not there right now, but is something that you want to be actively tracking, tidal waves. But yeah, that's kind of the loop, right? A beefed up Healing Surge, and then Chain Heal if you have a High Tide proc. Okay, so I updated it here. So manage tidal wave procs. Your next priority is going to be Healing Rain with Downpour. Again, be careful with Downpour. It's very mana intensive. You only want to be casting Downpour if you actually need the healing. If people aren't in danger of dying, I'm not pressing this button. It's very expensive. From here, if you're running Cloudburst, make sure you're not overcapping on those charges. If you're running Healing Stream Totem, again, make sure you're not overcapping on those charges. Step 7, keep your Healing Rain down. Again, that's going to be through your Surging Totem. Going to be a ton of healing that you get out of this. Going to be a ton of AoE damage that you get out of this, and that's going to be due to Whirling Elements here. And then, of course, Surging Totem by itself makes it last for 24 seconds, so very OP ability. Try to keep this down as much as you can. The only time I'd recommend not to drop this is if a boss or mobs are being kited like crazy and you can't keep them in for at least 10 seconds. Next step is going to be Healing Surge if we have Undulation. So again, Undulation is not something that you need to track at all. It just kind of happens passively. This does also impact our Healing Wave, but still, I still feel that Healing Wave is not a button really worth pressing. So I would funnel this into your Healing Surge. Step 9 here is completely outdated, right? We're not having to refresh our Earth Shield anymore, so I want to remove that step. And then your last priority is to Chain Heal if 3+ people are injured. This, of course, would be a Chain Heal that's not buffed by our High Tide. Okay, there's the complete rotation priority. I took out that step 9 with Earth Shield. Let's go ahead and go into Consumables now. So we're running Flask of Tempered Aggression. That's going to increase our Critical Strike for 1 hour. We talked about earlier how important Critical Strike is to us due to both Whitewater as well as Resurgence. So make sure you're running this flask. Tempered Potion, everything else here is pretty standard. Tempered Potion, Algari Healing Potion, Algari Mana Potion, Earth Living Weapon on your main hand. And I also need to update this as well, but a Tide Caller's Guard will be on your offhand, so make sure you're running that. Okay, there's the updated Tide Caller's Guard on there. Crystallized Augment Rune if you can afford them for main stat. Feast of the Midnight Masquerade for main stat. Elusive Blasphemite. That's going to give us movement speed per unique gem color. And then a Versatile Ruby for that critical strike and verse. For the enchants, we're running Greater Rune of the Void Ritual. We're running Avoidance on our Cloak. We're running Leech on our Bracers, and then Stamina on our Boots. Authority of Fiery Resolve on our main weapon. That's going to do like a burst of AoE healing. We're running Intellect on our chest. This is also going to increase our mana pool a little as well. Daybreak Spell Thread on our pants. Again, something else that will give us Intellect and more max mana. And then finally, double critical strike on both of our rings. Embellishments are going to be Dark Moon Sigil Ascension with Dawn Thread Lining. For our tier set, we have a chance to apply Insurance through just our normal spells, and then Insurance is just going to be like this ticking hot effect. And then with our 4th set, we're actually able to funnel this Insurance a little bit more with our Surging Totem, and this is simply just going to increase the effectiveness of our Chain Heal, Healing Surge, or Healing Wave by 10% when we consume one of those Insurance stacks. For general tips, we already covered most of this stuff. This section here, maintain your shields. If you're running Therazane's Resilience, again, you don't have to maintain your shields, but I leave it in there just in case you're not running that talent. In terms of stat priority, so our mastery is Deep Healing, and Deep Healing is actually pretty strong as content gets harder, because this is going to increase your healing based on the target's missing health. So as healing demands increase, your Deep Healing actually kind of moves up in value. But for the most part, Critical Strike is going to be the main secondary stat that you're looking at. Again, that's going to be due to Resurgence. That's going to give us mana back on our critical heals. And then Whitewater, which is just going to give us 15% more effectiveness on our critical heal. Versatility is going to be pretty good. Just kind of scales with our kit, just kind of in general. I would say that this is on par with something like Mastery. If we kind of look at the tip here, it can be seen as a weaker stat and easier content when players maintain high health. So it just depends on the type of content that you're running. But that's one thing that's really nice about Restoration Shaman is you can run a combination of any 3 of these stats and be completely fine. Now, obviously, you're going to put probably a little bit more focus into Critical Strike, but that opens up more pools, more gear pools. Like if you get a Mastery versus Ring, that's going to be completely fine. And then finally here at the bottom, Haste is going to be the least priority because our spells cost a lot of mana, and you don't want to be casting a whole bunch of chain heals because it's going to you pretty quick. Instead, we want to have really strong chain heals so that our mana is being used more effectively. Or I guess efficiently might be the better word there. But anyways, that's it for secondary stats. That's going to be it for this guide. Again, if this helped you in any way, please consider visiting our Patreon page. Again, no pressure at all, but this channel is running off caffeine and blue light for my monitor. And if you don't want to do that, then just a simple like or comment helps support the channel as well. Thank you guys for watching. See you in the next one.